Hey everybody, welcome to Gaming Golf, the Sony Invitational Edition, brought to you by our friends at WynnBET. I think if you have a chance to be a gamer in your state, please use WynnBET, WYNNBET. Jeff Erickson here with Jeff Ritter from SI Golf and Scott Jenstad from RotoWire. Gentlemen, first of all, we got a big congrats to Jenstad for correctly naming Cam Smith as his one-and-done winner last week. And I think it was like 22-1 as for him a gaming perspective too, right, Scott?
It was either 21 or 22-1. I actually had it too, so it was a fun start to the golf season. I tell you what, him holding off John Rahm for like 2 straight rounds, head to head in the final group, like that's impressive stuff right there. We always knew Cam was good, but like that was, and Rahm was playing really. Rahm Saturday was insane when he was 12 under. Like the fact that he held on was really impressive head to head against Rahm.
Didn't miss. It was crazy.
Yeah. And just the amount of birdies, like you're 34 under par for 72 holes. That's just ridiculous.
We all
played Kapalua. That golf course, I know it's easy for tour pros, but that is such a hard golf course. It's just so dramatic and quirky, and it's just wildly impressive. And and we didn't know what Rahm was going to bring because he was off for so long, but he was basically Ryder Cup Rahm out there, birdieing everything, making just the pressure on the entire time. So Cam Smith looks like the guy who's ready. Cam Smith looks ready. He was on my cheat sheet for tonight. We have our golf draft, and now I feel like this happens like every other year in this league, where the guys I like perform really well in Kapalua, and then their prices go up in our auction, which we always have like in between Kapalua and the Sony. So I'm revealing some of my strategy to you, but Cam Smith is on my short list, but I don't know what I want to bid up for him now off that win, but. He looks like he's ready, for
his price is going to go up in tonight's auction just as much as it's going to go up as it did in DraftKings, as it did in his gaming odds. I mean, he was already going to be a favorite this week anyhow. Let's not kid ourselves, it just sent it through the stratosphere. How about Matt Jones? 23 under over the weekend. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that's a DFS winner right there if you had him.
Dude was like chipping in from everywhere too. It was crazy. Every time I looked up, I'm like, oh, this is like a match play situation. And Matt Jones would chip in for Eagle. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's not so much a match play. It turned out to be, but he was really impressive.
He was. Let's turn our attention to the Sony. It's not a star-filled field. Despite so many players being over at Kapalua, I think there's only one in the top 10 after Bryson's withdrawal, and that's because of Cam Smith getting into the top 10. And then it's all like there's like a half dozen top 25 guys, but it's not a deep field.
No, it is not. And if you're looking at course trends, 7 out of the last 8 winners at the Sony Open played in the Tournament of Champions the week before. So ironically, Cam Smith, he did not, a couple of years ago, he did not play in the TOC. So if you're looking for a trend line to try to find that winner for your one and done or as a straight ticket, I would still look at the TOC, the guys who have that warm-up week behind them in Kapalua as a place to start. But certainly there's a lot of under-the-radar guys percolating that could round out a DraftKings lineup. But I like that trend. I like trend spotting when it comes to, the week-to-week schedule. And I think that gets my attention, the fact that so many winners ultimately just hopped over from Maui.
Yeah, and I think it's not a top-heavy field, but there's a lot of interesting names, a lot of good mid-tier names. And I think the most fun thing about this tournament is there's all these guys who are like coming off the Korn Ferry Tour, all these young guys who like have really good games, and we're going to see how it translates to PGA Tour. I think it's a fascinating week. Like there's like 6 to 8 names that I'm really curious to see how they're going to play. Coming kind of off the swing season, off the Korn Ferry Tour, guys who could take the step up this year and be legit top 100 guys.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the course first. Wale Country Club. I butchered the pronunciation.
Waialae.
I don't know why I can't say that properly. It's just one of those things. I don't speak Hawaiian very well, apparently. They played this course forever, since like 1965. Frequently the scores are pretty low. As 21 under was the winner last year, but 2 years ago Cam Smith won like an 11 under in a playoff. I think the wins were up that year. But one of the things I've noticed, or read at least, is that strokes gained putting, strokes gained around the green are super important here. It's not just approach.
Yes, that does seem to be a trend. Although they did tweak the course this year. I've read it, but I haven't seen I'm not there, obviously, and haven't seen it for myself, but apparently they've grown the rough out. So once you do that, perhaps there'll be a more of a premium on driving accuracy off the tee. Although we'll see how that bears out. But just one thought to keep in mind. You see Bryson DeChambeau, of course, withdrawing from this one. Not sure if he got to look at the rough and said, I'll pass, or if there's other commitments. I have a feeling he just had other commitments. But you wonder about a Bryson-type profile maybe not being as great of a fit for this course as it otherwise would have been before they made that change.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting course because it's so much different than last week where you just bomb it and the fairways are wide open. I think it was 53% of the fairways were hit last year on this course, whereas at Kapalua it's like 81% or something like that. So it's like it brings a lot of shorter hitters into play as long as accuracy matters in this course. It's shorter, only 2 par 5s. So I think we have an interesting dynamic this week where it's one of those few courses on tour where those short, accurate guys really have a chance to kind of be in the top 10.
Yeah, they're playing Kevin Na's music here.
Yeah, there you go, defending champ, right?
Yes, that's right. Let's leap into the field here. We'll do our usual break it down by salaries. Let's go with the 5-digit guys. There's 5 of them now with Bryson withdrawing. It's Cam Smith 11-2. He was in the 8,000s last week. Just shows what a difference a week makes, both in strength of field and what happens when you win. Hideki is at 10-6. Webb Simpson is at 10-5. Sung J M is at 10-3, and Mark Leishman is at 10,000. Jeff Ritter, let's start with you. What do you like in this group?
I'm probably going to make a living a tier or 2 down this week. But I mean, you talk up what Cam Smith just did, and he looks like, for all the world, like a guy who's ready to win a major, become a world beater. But it's hard to just pay top dollar for the guy. It's just hard to win back to back. It's hard to just somebody who's now up a level to just jump on board. So the one guy I flag off here, maybe more than the others, is Mark Leishman. Although, to be honest, I think I'm more excited about filling out my roster in the 8s and 9,000s this week. But Leishman's another guy who's he played last week, which is part of the profile I'm looking for, is just guys coming off the TOC, finished 10th, has not missed a cut at YLI. He's 12 out of 12. So
is that
at
good?
the very least, you feel pretty good that you're gonna see the weekend and ring up some more points for your DraftKings game. So and Leishman's another guy. Also, there's something about these early weeks. I also start thinking about who's my breakout players for the year, and Leishman's a guy I'm watching, and so I like trying to get, if I'm right about who's going to break out, I like to try to jump on that early, because you see what happens with Cam Smith's price now having had the breakout. I like trying to be a week early. Leishman's still pretty expensive for this week, but he's a guy I'm watching this year, and so I'd be tempted to add him this week.
Probably nobody likes Cam Smith as much as me. I bet him last week. I had him on our auction team last year. There's no way in hell I'm playing 11-2 for Cam Smith, and there's certainly no way in hell I'm betting him at 8-1. I think the 8-1, under 10-1 price is just absurd this week, especially in a full field event like this. Webb Simpson's going to be super popular. He's top 4 each of the last 4 years of this course. Fits him perfectly. I think he's going to be really popular at 10-5. I'm with Jeff, though. I really like Mark Leishman this week. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm going to be mentioning him in later segments of the show also. He was 10th last week, played well, gained 2.1 in approach. Jeff mentioned the course history here. Not only they made cuts, but he has 4 top 10s. He's been top 4 twice in the last 3 years. So he's really good here, playing really well. He has 4 top 20s in his last 5 events since September. I think the price will keep him not too popular at 10 million. I don't think, 10,000, whatever you want to call it.
10 million. 10
million. 10,000. I always add the 3 zeros. I don't think anybody's don't be that popular. I think Webb will be more popular. I think Sung J will probably be more popular too. I really like Leishman this week for DraftKings, for betting, for one and dones. I think it's a nice week for Leishman in a one and done, just to jump ahead, just because I'm not that way. He's a really good player in a field that he's one of the better players, but not someone that I'm worried about, like not being able to play later on the season too. So I think he fits well. I love Leishman this week at 10,000.
Yeah. Any comments on Decky or Sung J on the merits?
I mean, Sung Jae's just solid. He was 8th last week. He's gained tee to green 5 weeks in a row. I think that he's always there, always the guy that I like. Obviously, I like him more in the 8s than the 10s, but
right.
Didn't hit it fantastically well last week, which is kind of okay on approach. I like him. I just prefer Leishman this week.
Matsuyama and M combined 8 for 8 in cuts made at YLI. So also even both guys.
I wouldn't mind a build with one of those guys, especially because they're not the ones, especially Hideki. I don't think it's going to gain a lot of hype, perhaps. And I think others are going to be built around more. So we'll see. Let's move on to the 9,000 tier. It's a small tier. Kevin Nas at 99, Abe Answers at 97, Corey Connors is at 96, Harris English 93, Taylor Gooch at 91. Scott, we'll start with you. What grabs you from this tier?
Not a huge fan of this tier, honestly. The one guy that I will be playing in here is everybody's favorite on the podcast, Corey Connors at 9,600. Just a perfect setup for him. He was top 10 last year in driving accuracy and shot gains approach, but he's not long. I think he was over 100th in distance. So I think this is a course that sets up really well for him for his accuracy. He was top 15 here in 2019 and 2020. 9,600 is a pretty is a pricey tag for Connors, but wasn't great in the fall, but just a good tee to green approach guy. I think he fits really well here. I will definitely be playing him at 9,600 in some lineups.
Totally agree. I mean, it's certainly Kevin Nas music, but we know how hard it is to just repeat in these things. Now look solid at the TOC last week though, so I wouldn't be scared to put Kevin Na in my lineup, but I agree. Connors is my favorite off the tier. I think, and I still think Taylor Gooch is a guy that's kind of like simmering. Like he kind of has the profile of a guy he's playing his best golf of his career now. Hasn't taken my advice yet and just gone by TK Gooch. And I just think he needs that marketing boost, but tempting at 91. But I'm with Scott. My favorite off the tier also is Corey Connors.
When I ran my model with key stats, Taylor Gooch came up number 1 for the last 24 rounds overall.
That's pretty good.
So he has been playing exceptionally well. A lot of top tens, like almost every stat. He's been firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, I like him better than Connors because Connors, just the flat stick bothers me. I think you need to putt well here to do well. And I know he's putting better. I guess he was like strokes gained putting was like 43rd or something in the fall. But last year as a season, it was his best year, and he was still like around 110 or so. So it always seems like that one thing to let you down. I definitely want to do. I want you to do a gaming ticket on Corey Connors. I might do it with DraftKings, but I'd rather save the 500 and go with Gooch, I think. Anyways, let's move on to the $8,000 tier. There's a little bit of a bigger tier. Start off at Kisner at 8,900, Horschel's at 87, Kokrak off a terrible week last week, 86, Russell Henley 85, Matt Jones 84, Maverick McNeely 83, Van Rooyen 82, Sheamus Power 81, and 8,000s with Charles Howell and Cam Davis. Jeff Ritter, what do you think?
So I think one of my favorite stats of the week is it's like it's the expression find someone who loves you find someone who loves you like Charles Howell loves the Sony Open. He's the all-time money leader. He's 20 for 20 in making the cut at this event. So
he's old.
You almost how often do you say you can just build around an $8,000 player in DraftKings? But that's just immediately into the lineup. I probably would not bet him on a ticket because, as we know, Howell very rarely wins despite the successful career he's had. So. But certainly love him for yet another top 20 this week. Let's start there. But I also think, one guy I like this year as a rebound season, and, I thought he had a pretty solid start last week, the Tournament of Champions, is Kevin Kisner. He doesn't have the game that's going to contend on every track, so he's got to make his money, where he can make it. And Waialae is certainly one of those places for ball striking accuracy. And I always just kind of enjoy his grit when he's in contention. So Kisner at 8,900 would be my other guy off this tier, but Howell at 8,000 my favorite.
Just because we tend to agree a lot, I'm going to say that I think Kevin Kisner is the most mispriced guy in the entire thing. I think he's like 1,000 overpriced. I think 8,900 is an absurd price for Kisner, who just putted out of his ass last week, but didn't really even hit it that well. And was horrible in the fall before that. We agree a lot, but I am definitely way off of Kisner this week.
I have the battle scars from having Kisner all season last year. I mean, he got me the one win, and then which got him into the playoff, and then he just tanked so badly in the playoffs. Yeah, I have a hard time watching him play. He's a great putter, and all around nice guy from what I hear. But I don't want him at 8,900 either. I'm intrigued by Cam Davis. I think I like the price on him. I like that he played last week. I think a lot of people are going to be. I think Matt Jones will be maybe the most rostered player this week, percentage wise. I mean, at 8,400 after that finish, I think everyone's going to try to build off that. I'd be surprised if the field isn't all over Matt Jones.
So I think I agree with you on Jones. I think Henley and Horschel are also going to be popular in this range. I think that Henley's just been so solid for people lately at 8,500. He feels a little bit underpriced. The two guys I like in this range, I really like Maverick Mcneely at 8,300. Top 25 his last 3 tournaments. He was 19th at Houston his last time out. Really good tee to green, really good approach. He's made 12 of 13 cuts. He had a second in September. I think he's a guy that is a little bit of a breakout guy for me this season. I think he's going to be someone that's going to hit a bunch of top 25s this year, and neither of you should bid on him tonight in our auction. I also like Sheamus Power a lot this week at 8,100. I think that the price is obviously up from last week, but he played well last week. He was 15th. He gained everywhere but putting. He's another guy that's very accurate off the tee, but a little bit shorter. So last week didn't set up great for him, but this week sets up really well. Last 6 tournaments, 5 of them inside the top 21, 3 inside the top 12. I think that Henley and Horschel and Jones will kind of suck up that rostership. I really like getting McNeely and Power in this range.
Power's a great pick. Yeah, I say as a guy playing the best golf of his life right now, and that's not a bad call when you can get him at this price.
I think last week was a pretty good strategy to build out of the 8,000s. Maybe have one high price guy in there and a low price guy in there. Is this tournament set up well for that as well? Maybe get 3 guys out of the $8,000 tier.
It's a little tougher because last week we had really good options in the 6,000s. Like Power was 6,600 last week, and it's hard to find. If you can find those guys in the 6,000, there's a couple we'll talk about. You can do it, but yeah. So I agree there. I think it's hard to get those really expensive guys in there. So I think maybe one in the 9s, a couple in the 8s, or maybe 2 or 3 in the 8s. I think does work pretty well this week just because it's hard to find cheaper guys.
Right on. Before we move on to the $7,000 tier, quick note from our sponsors on the Blue Wire Network. All right. Thanks to the Blue Wire Network for providing a platform for our podcast all season long. Let's move on to the $7,000 tier. It's a pretty deep tier. I'm not going to go over a name because that would take a while, and we don't want to go more than half an hour on this. So let's start off just in the. We'll go Scott this time. Give me 3 or 4 guys that you like, and maybe one that's a trap.
It's a tough range. It's a tough range because there's a lot of guys that you're like, I can see this working out, but they all have warrants. There's no like obvious plays for me in the 7,000s. I like Joel Damon again. We talked about him last week at 6,100. Started out well and then kind of faded pretty hard. But again, it's another guy that this course sets up way better for him than last week did. Like last week, he gained on fairways gained, but he lost so many strokes in driving distance gain that he just got crushed by the length. So I think he works out well, really accurate. He was top 25 the last 2 years here. At 7,600, I think the price is good for him. He was Jeff talked about the guys that play well or play the week before tend to play well here. He's kind of struggled around the greens, but I think it's a good week for him. Kind of out of nowhere, I like Aaron Ray this week at 7,700, a guy that I don't think a lot of people will be on. He's a little bit higher priced than I thought he would be, and I think that kind of helps his ownership. But 3 top 20s in November, really good tee to green and approach numbers in those 2 events in November. He gained over 5 in approach in back-to-back weeks. I think he'd be really popular if he was like 6,800, but I think 7,700 kind of brings that down to a place where we can work with. And one other name, I think Christian Behazenhut is interesting here. Not a guy who I think can win. Doesn't really have a lot of top 5s, top 10s, but just makes cuts. He missed 1 cut in 2021. It was his last tournament, but I think he's just a guy that under 8,000 will get you through to the weekend, and then those are valuable points.
Wiedenhout was on my list. I also just
you say it so much better than I do.
I gotta warm it up. It's good to get. I think he's a guy much like we all struggled with Oosthuizen back in the day. Wiedenhout is another guy who seems to be ascending, and it wouldn't surprise me if he dents the leaderboard this weekend. The other guy I would add, so I like that pick a lot from you, Scott. I would add also it's so boring to take him, but I think Stuart Sink will probably be under-owned, and he looked all right last week. And I was just looking up his course history at Waialae. T42, 7 or better in 7 straight at this event. So another guy who could just hang around for the weekend. And this course a better fit for his type of golf game than Kapalua. So boring, probably under-owned, but maybe sneaky.
It didn't play well last week, but Brendan Gray seems pretty low priced at 7,100. What's up with that?
What did he do last week?
T33.
33.
It was a birdie fest, and he was 13 under. So
he lost strokes in every single stat I'm looking at, so that's not great.
No, I guess that's why he's low price. But of the players that played last week, he's about as cheap as you get. That's kind of what I'm pointing out.
And he's a guy that actually can compete and be a top 10 type of guy. He hasn't played well lately, but I mean, he has a history of being a top 10 guy. So he's one of those few guys in the 7,000s. We're trying to get through the cut with these guys, but you're right. He's a guy that could be a top 20 guy. A lot more. You can see that a lot easier than some of these other dudes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for here. Yeah. All right, let's finish out the 6,000s. Any gold to be mined here? Jeff, why don't you start?
Well, I noticed Vincent Whaley, who is kind of one of the stars of the podcast in the second half last year, lurking down there. But I think this is a time. I mean, if you're going to throw a dart, it's tempting maybe to look at maybe somebody's just making their debut. Like Scott said, off the Korn Ferry Tour, and I'm trying to grab one. I had one guy I really liked last year who just never arrived was Brandon Wu. I had him in our fantasy league for a while, waiting for that guy to start to appear because I liked his profile as a collegiate player, and it just didn't. I think he had an injury or something. It just didn't happen. But I see him in the field now at 6,500. I've got to do more research to see, is he full-time member now or what his status is. But he had a big profile in college, and there's always guys that surprise you. The Sony Open, you're always scrambled to there's a name I've not seen before. This is the week that happens because you've got this flood of new talent in.
Right.
I'm going to circle Brandon Wu as someone I'm going to start watching again.
How about you, Scott?
So I've got a slew of names down here. I think this is one of those weeks where if you play multiple lineups, you want to kind of toss a couple of these guys in. So I've got 4 guys who are kind of newcomers, then one guy who's a veteran, but I think is underpriced. The new guys I think that are really good to look at if you really want to dig deeper. Alex Smalley is 7,000. He had 2 top 15s in the fall season, 12th at Bermuda, 15th at Houston. He profiles like a pretty breakout guy. Cameron Young at 6,800, 2 wins on the Korn Ferry Tour, finished second in October at Sanderson Farms. He's more of a driving distance guy than an accuracy guy, so I'm a little pulling back on him, but an interesting name. Hayden Buckley is 6,700. He had 2 top 10s in October, a 4th at Sanderson Farms and 8th at Shriners. Then he had a couple 70th and miscut, but a guy who 2 top 10s in the swing season really kind of sparks your interest a little bit. And then Steven Yeager is 6,500. He was first on the Korn Ferry Tour last year in points. He had 2 wins, 4 seconds, 7 top 10s. Finished the Korn Ferry last year with 3 straight top 5s to close the season. It was really hot late in the year. Didn't do a lot in the fall season. A guy it was on the tour before, lost his tour card, now is back. I always kind of like those guys, maybe kind of their second time through. And the one veteran who I find interesting is I run models and look at stats and stuff. Mark Hubbard is 6,600 and keeps popping up in everything over the last 24 rounds. He's gained a tee to green in 7 of 8. He's gained in putting in 5 of 6. He's made 7 straight cuts. He has a top 25 in 4 of his last 6. If you look at this field, he's top 10 in the field in the last 24 rounds in tee to green, par 5 scoring, and shot gains approach. Like stats that you really want a guy who's top 10. Like you look at that and it's all big name guys in there. And then Mark Hubbard kind of pops in all the stats. It's really weird how he does there. So I'm going to kind of believe the model and believe the stats a little bit and play Hubbard on much team. 600 is really low price for someone who shows up that well recently in the stats. So kind of trusting the stats there, but Mark Hubbard 600 is my favorite guy in the price range.
Len Hochberg in his preview article cites Hudson Swafford at 68 is kind of interesting. Made 7 out of 8 cuts at Sony. He didn't have a great year last year, but he finished strong. And, I kind of sometimes like that there.
He's definitely a course guy. He had 2 top 10s here. He's 25th last year. He's definitely one that I know people like. Just the course history is really good with him.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a guy that another cheap guy to fill in, he could be another alternative too. Generally speaking, Scott, I know you play a decent amount on DraftKings. Do you like to build one lineup and fill in a lot of contests, or do you like to try one contest, try to fill a couple different lineups? How's your approach? What do you like? How do you like to play?
More the second one. I mean, I'm not a 100 lineup guy, but I usually play 3, 4, 5 somewhere in there. Usually try and stick with some core guys in each lineup kind of thing. But I'm not the best at that because I end up liking a bunch of guys. But if you hit on like last week was Cam Smith, if you hit on him and you have a bunch of lineups, like you just can do a lot more with it. If you spread yourself out too much, you're gonna find yourself, oh, I hit this one, but the wrong one. So it's hard to really get it. So I kind of build around a core of 2 or 3 guys and mix and match them. I don't play a ton of lineups, but I usually play like my favorite lineup in some of the bigger contests, the $33 one, the $25 one. Then in the $9 and the $3 and the single entries, I'll put a couple different, maybe 3 or 4 lineups in those lower ones. And then I usually put my best team in the single entry. I like the $12 Albatross on DraftKings.
I like that one too.
Yeah, I like that
tournament.
tournament.
There's multiple ones of those, and I like the notion of a single entry contest too.
I do too. I usually I take my favorite lineup, my best lineup, and put it in those, and then some of the lower dollar contests, the $9, the $3, the $5, the birdies, and I forget what the Drive the Green, I think it's called. I'll throw 3 to 5 lineups there, depending on the tournament, depending on how busy I am. But I do try and I end up liking so many guys in the week, but I really have to try and kind of parse that down and figure out my favorite plays, which is a tough task for me on Wednesday nights.
How about you, Jeff? How do you like
that? Yeah, well, in Texas, I can't get on the DraftKings yet, but when I was in Michigan for a couple of weeks last summer, it was over the British Open, so I went crazy. And I had my it turned out my favorite lineup, one that was like in the top like 2%. I had entered it in a double up pool, so it wouldn't matter. All you had to do. So I learned the hard way. I'm like, I'm never entering one of these again. Because it's not, to me.
You can enter those, but just make sure you take that team and at least throw it somewhere in a tournament.
Yeah,
just in case it pops like that.
I had all these combos, and just like I hit the right combination in the wrong pool. So that was my one lesson for DraftKings. But no, Texas unfortunately is shut out of the fun for now. So I'm just making lineups, for the fun of it, is what I would submit if I could in preparation for this podcast. So hopefully this year those laws loosen up a little bit.
Right on. Let's move on to gaming. Let's look at some tickets, see if we can find something that we like. I mean, Scott, the pressure's on. You got the winner last week.
I think the pressure's off. You hit it 20 to 1. You can lose for a while, right?
Okay, the credit is on. Our lonely eyes are turning to you. So what do you like this week?
Yeah, it's interesting. The odds are so low on some names that you just don't expect to see up there. We mentioned Cam Smith at 8 to 1. Like, it's just kind of jarring to look at. So I'm going to take a couple of guys a little bit higher than I normally do, and then a couple of back end guys. I'm going to go Mark Leishman at 16 to 1 and Corey Connors at 18 to 1. I usually like those guys in the 20 to 30 range, but the way this tournament's set up, it's not going to happen. So I'm going to bet in both of those. I'm going to drop back. I got to drop back a little bit in order, just when you're taking 2 guys that high. I'm going to take Sheamus Power at 40 to 1. And then also Maverick Mcneely at 50 to 1. That'll be the 4 guys on my betting ticket as of this moment. May add a couple of darts later as I look at some guys. I might throw a couple bucks on Mark Hubbard just because the stats pop so much. I'd be mad at myself if he happened to spark and win and I didn't have a couple bucks on him. He's way down the list, so you can bet that one pretty easily. But those 4 guys I mentioned, especially Leishman and Connors, are my main parts of my ticket this week.
I love that. I love that Mark Hubbard stuff. I'm adding that to my own notes here. I would add, I love Leishman as well, as we said at the top. I show him at 20 to 1 on golf odds. You said 16 to 1 on DraftKings. Yeah. I still like him. I had Taylor Gooch. I like that. I think it's might be happening for him soon.
And he's 25 or 31. Like, that's a pretty good price for a guy that it kind of looks he's playing really well.
Yeah, yep. I need to know. I got to find out his middle name so I can just call him TK Gooch. I'm going to find for next week's podcast. I'm going to get that research done. But I like him a lot. So I think that's probably. And then, despite the 2 of you, I would probably take Kisner 35 to 1, and we'll just see what happens there. Those would be my 3 bets.
Just throw it out there. Mark Hubbard is 130 to 1 right now, so I'll definitely be putting a few bucks on that one, just in case. I would not want to miss that.
I bet you just moved the market right this second.
All right.
25 now.
That's what I am. I'm a real market mover. Let me tell you.
You should be. $20 at a time.
After last week, you should be.
I don't know if Taylor Gooch has a middle name. I'm not seeing it come up anywhere. It's kind of.
I know. I looked. I did make a quick scan and came up with nothing. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why he's just going with Taylor. He has no other option. Nothing wrong with the name Taylor, by the way. I just think he's got an opportunity there to remarket himself a bit.
There you go. All right, finally, one and done. Let's go, Jeff, this time. What do you got for this week?
Well,
don't do it, Jeff.
I honestly, Scott,
you couldn't have gone to me. You couldn't have gone to me first on this one.
Well, all right. We'd have to play last week. I had no one's gonna believe this. I was gonna take Cam Smith, but you took him. I'm like, it's fine, whatever. And I took Pat Reed. This week I had Leishman, and I know you're going with it. I'm gonna give him to you.
Thank you. I
Leishman,
appreciate it.
and I'm gonna take Gooch. I'm gonna take Taylor Gooch because I do think it's happening. I'm kind of torn between those guys, so I will take Gooch. But I also think Leishman's a tremendous pick on all tickets this week.
That's fair. I appreciate it. If Leishman wins, we will certainly give you the credit too.
I put it on tape. I put it on tape this time. Last week I just let you have Cam Smith quietly and didn't share, but it was a great pick.
I'm going Mark Leishman this week. I think it fits really well in this field. He's a good name in a field that's not really top heavy. I think it's a prime time to play a guy like this. As we get in the summer, we get bigger events, bigger fields. I'm not going to worry about not having Leishman available. So it fits perfectly. I think he's got a really good chance to win. I think he's got a really chance to be a top 5. I'm Mark Leishman all the way this week.
Since I'm in the same one and done pool as both y'all, I'm persuaded on Leishman. I think you're probably right, but just to be different, I'll probably take the other most commonly guy I used and go Russell Henley this week for my one and done entry there. I like all the stats here, and the only thing I don't like is he didn't play last week. But
who's the most picked guy in our one and done this week? I'd like to do that each week and kind of think. So you guys who think is gonna be most popular?
It's a good question.
I think it's gonna be Webb.
I think you're right, actually. Although I don't like that he didn't play last week.
Corey Connors could be popular. Yeah. Probably not a guy that you don't want to take a major winner or like a WGC winner right off, but you want to try to land solidly on the board in week 1, right? And I can see Connors being up there.
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah, I can see it. I think some people will jump right back on Cam Smith. He's won here 2 weeks ago. I mean, that's pretty. That's pretty convincing too. So I don't know. I think it's close there. Do you
think somebody at Google right now is wondering why the hell I keep Googling what is Taylor Gooch's middle name?
How are you spelling Taylor? Maybe that has something to do with
it. I found a story on why there's no Y in the name, but I haven't seen a middle name yet.
Okay. There's no Y, and there's no Y in Taylor and no middle name. It's just more unanswered questions.
The no Y is a family custom. My mom's side of the family just spelled names weird, so they wanted to keep the tradition going.
Good a reason as any.
Absolutely.
All right. Any parting thoughts before we sign off, or is that our parting thought?
Parting thought. I think we'll see you both in the draft tonight, right? This is going to be fun. Is there a season-long thought that you would want to share with readers?
Not that I'm giving right now. No.
Yeah, I think. Well,
I'll say this. Last year, I was going to build this balanced roster. I was going to be like calm at the auction, and then I bought Justin Johnson, first player out of the chute. So that didn't really work out so because he was a bargain last year. He was the lowest priced top pick that we've had in a really long time.
That's pretty hard to drive a guy who wins every single year his whole career to no wins.
Yeah. Well, hey, I've got that Midas touch.
That's a special trait right there.
I've won this league 4 times, so I'm not that bad in this league. I'm not that bad, I promise.
4 times impressive.
That's good. Is that the lead? Are you the leader? Has anybody won more than 4?
I think Josh has won it even more. Our defending champ, Josh Ross, and I know P&L is always great in this league too. So there's some good players in this league.
I've come in second twice and last place twice. So I need one more top 3 to at least rebalance my.
Yeah, you're a little.
I'm kind of in your boat. I've only been in 3 years, but I have a second and a last also. So I'm following the Jeff Ritter plan there. So
there you go. But you know what? Hey, nobody remembers if you don't win, right? So
that's very true. And I lost last year because there was a 3-man playoff. Josh had 2 of the. I had 2 of the 3. Josh had 1 of the 3. He ended up winning the tournament. That was the difference. So yeah.
Ouch.
I'm not bitter at all about that. So
no.
Josh is going to buy me a lot of steak coming up soon, so I don't feel as bad about it because he's the double buyer in our steak league. So
he is that.
I'm looking forward to maybe a bigger steak than normal.
There you go. All right, that's going to be our sign off right there. All right, thanks everybody for watching Gaming Golf or listening to it. Good luck on your DraftKings and your tickets this week. Take care.